Welcome to the debate. Today, we're delving into a concept that's definitely sparked considerable discussion and is, well, reshaping our understanding of modern relationships, the simp economy. Now, China has officially classified this as a growing sector. We're talking about situations where women exchange companionship, sometimes even marriage, for tangible benefits, things like debt relief, gifts, or, direct financial support. This global precedent, it really raises a critical question for the West. Should America adopt a similar recognition? And maybe more importantly, what profound implications does this have for intimacy, for the very definition of relationships in our modern society? I'll be arguing today for the necessity of formal recognition and transparency, really in light of these significant economic shifts we're seeing in relationships.
And I'll be exploring the complexities here, the potential pitfalls maybe of such a classification, and digging into the deeper moral and ethical questions it raises about, well, the nature of human connection itself.
Okay, so let's start there. From my perspective, the simp economy is, look, it's far from some fringe phenomenon. It's becoming a legitimate economic force, much like, say, segments of the gig economy. It's characterized by a clear, often pretty explicit exchange of value, companionship or marriage offered in return for financial support or material benefits. China's official classification, that isn't just, a political statement. It's an acknowledgement of its significance as a fundamental shift in the economic dynamics that underpin relationships in modern society. They've actually established formal statistical tracking for this sector. They recognize it as a measurable part of their social and economic landscape, often tied to legal frameworks around marriage, family finances. Now, for the U.S., formal recognition isn't about intrusive policing of personal lives, not at all. Instead, it's about establishing transparency and accountability in a landscape where, as the material suggests, the market for love is becoming increasingly formalized, almost corporate, you could say. Men, in particular, arguably need clarity to discern between genuinely romantic relationships and what are, well, in essence, transactional arrangements. Embracing a classification, it can provide a critical framework for individuals to navigate these new dynamics more consciously. It empowers everyone, really, to demand the transparency they deserve in modern partnerships. It's fundamentally about facing a societal reality head-on, not, avoiding it.
While I absolutely acknowledge the undeniable presence of transactional elements in many modern relationships, I think formally classifying this phenomenon as the simp economy here in the U.S. presents some really substantial challenges and potential societal harms that we really need to examine critically. Such a move, while maybe it sounds well-intentioned, it inherently risks creating a framework that effectively polices relationships. And this could easily lead to significant stigma, maybe far more than genuine accountability, and it just gravely oversimplifies the intricate, deeply human nuances of connection. My concern is less about whether these exchanges exist, clearly they do, and more about the implications of slapping an official governmental label on them. The focus, I believe, really needs to shift to the profound cultural and ethical dilemmas at play here. Is this truly a fair trade within a capitalist society? Or, does it tip towards a form of exploitation, particularly if, say, women are leveraging financial desperation?
Right.
And furthermore, if our relationships become primarily defined by this sort of what can you do for me financial calculus, what actually becomes of genuine love and romance? Is it truly desirable for affection, for emotional connection, to become a secondary consideration, overshadowed by economic utility? This classification proposal, it doesn't just describe, it implicitly judges, I think, and it raises really critical questions about shared responsibility, about the deeper societal pressures pushing individuals into these dynamics, rather than just labeling them with what is, let's face it, a pretty loaded term.
I appreciate your concerns about potential stigma. I really do. But let's delve a bit deeper into the legitimacy of this as an economic force, because I believe the stakes are higher than simply the connotations of a colloquial term. The simp economy, it isn't merely an abstract concept. It involves a very clear, measurable exchange of value, companionship, sometimes even marital status, for tangible financial benefits. We're talking direct financial support, gifts, debt relief, achieving a certain lifestyle. This isn't just anecdotal. It demonstrably impacts a significant sector of personal interactions, and it mirrors the operational mechanisms of, say, a gig economy where specific services are exchanged for payment. Consider how dating apps, for instance, have become platforms that actually facilitate these connections, almost like marketplaces.
Sure. And China's official recognition as a growing sector, it sets a strong practical precedent. Their classification involves specific statistical tracking. It's within their Ministry of Civil Affairs, integrating it into broader social and economic planning. Sometimes it even impacts legal considerations around property and divorce. So if a major global power like China can formally track, analyze, and, acknowledge this increasingly prevalent societal shift, why should America continue to just ignore it? Turning a blind eye doesn't make this economic reality disappear. It simply leaves individuals, particularly men, perhaps, without the crucial tools to understand and navigate it. Transparency, maybe through classification, it's a pragmatic, evidence-based step towards understanding the evolving economic underpinnings of relationships in modern society. We're not policing, we're providing data and clarity.
Okay, I understand your point about the scale and, yes, the parallels to other economic models. And I definitely concede that these financial exchanges are undeniably occurring. However, I fundamentally disagree that formal classification and governmental tracking are appropriate responses for what remain, at their absolute core, intensely personal and intimate relationships. While financial exchanges might happen, drawing a governmental line around them, as China has done, it risks an unprecedented and, frankly, deeply intrusive form of policing relationships. It blurs that vital distinction between legitimate arm's-length economic activity like traditional employment and the inherent individual autonomy we value within our private lives. If we formalize this, we could see deeply intimate connections reduced to, cold data points, subjected to state scrutiny simply for the nature of their personal arrangements.
I mean, think about the ethical implications. Does a government really want to be potentially collecting information on who provides financial support to whom within a relationship, or how a relationship even began? Does the U.S. truly want to open the door to that kind of overreach into private lives? It could potentially stifle genuine, unquantifiable connection under the guise of some economic definition. The inherent complexity and emotional depth of human relationships, they just defy such neat governmental categorization without, I think, profound collateral damage. And let's pivot to the intricate gender dynamics and the ethical considerations that inevitably arise from these transactional dynamics. The moral dilemma here is multifaceted, isn't it? Is this truly a fair trade within a capitalist society, or does it indeed lean towards exploitation? The source material, it provokes us with that question. Are women leveraging financial desperation, whether it's debt or lifestyle costs, to redefine dating as transactional? Often this might be driven by systemic economic pressures. This isn't just about individual choice. It points to a complex web of societal circumstances that might push individuals into such arrangements. And then, of course, there's the role of men. Are they complicit by feeding this economy willingly? It's far from a simple case of one side being entirely responsible. We're dealing with a complex interplay of societal expectations, individual desires, and yes, economic vulnerabilities. For example, if women face disproportionate economic challenges, does leveraging financial desperation become more of a survival strategy than, say, a predatory act?
That's a fair question.
And what about the men who participate? Are they seeking connection, or are they consciously buying access instead of engaging in traditional courtship? To simply classify this phenomenon as an economy, it risks overlooking these deeper, frankly uncomfortable ethical questions about agency, about power imbalances, and about shared societal responsibility.
That's a compelling and, yes, nuanced point regarding the ethical complexities and those systemic pressures, particularly the idea of shared responsibility. However, I would frame the complicity perhaps a bit differently, especially concerning the men involved. While the origins of women leveraging financial desperation are certainly part of a much broader societal discussion about inequality, men's willing participation by buying access, as the material puts it, or providing that financial support undeniably makes them, well, to a significant degree, complicit in perpetuating and even expanding this economy. The material poses the question directly: who holds more responsibility? Women selling value or men buying access? My perspective is that the demand side plays an equally crucial, if not driving, role here. Men are making active choices to engage in these financial arrangements, whether they're seeking companionship, status, or, something else entirely. Given this undeniable complicity and the deeply transactional nature of these arrangements, the necessity of transparency becomes paramount for everyone involved. We're talking about implementing what I've sort of termed cultural warning labels for men. Now, these wouldn't be legal mandates, but clear, widely understood societal signals or frameworks, maybe, articulated through public awareness campaigns or even subtle shifts in how dating apps categorize things that clearly delineate when someone is entering a transactional arrangement versus a traditional, emotionally driven relationship. This isn't about judgment or blame. It's about empowering individuals to navigate a landscape where, as we've noted, the market for love has gone corporate. It demands a baseline of accountability for how these relationships are formed and maintained. It's really about informed consent in a new dating paradigm. And this brings us directly to a crucial point: the profound impact of this shift on, romance and true intimacy in Western relationships. The evidence, I would argue, increasingly suggests that romance is being replaced by economics in the West. If relationships are primarily rooted in a "what can you do for me financially" framework, then love, genuine affection, deep emotional connection, they inherently become a secondary concept, maybe even tertiary. We have to be realistic and pragmatic about this profound societal change. Accepting that a market for love has gone corporate isn't an endorsement of it, nor is it simply a lament. It's an acknowledgement of a new, complex reality. In this new landscape, a realistic adjustment to how we understand and approach intimacy is required. Consider the traditional elements of courtship, shared experiences, emotional vulnerability, mutual support. When financial transactions become central, these elements are either recontextualized or, frankly, diminished. Transparency, perhaps achieved through formal recognition, becomes more critical than ever. Not to devalue love, but to clearly distinguish genuine affection from economic exchange, allowing individuals to make informed choices about their emotional and financial investments. It's about being honest about the terms of engagement, really, fostering true intimacy where it genuinely exists and preventing confusion where it doesn't.
I'm not entirely convinced by that line of reasoning, though. Particularly the implication that formal classification is the solution to the erosion of romance. I really question whether classifying these relationships as an economy truly addresses the problem, or if it actually just legitimizes and kind of embeds a less desirable shift in societal values. If we formally categorize these relationships this way, aren't we implicitly accepting that financial exchange is becoming the defining characteristic of modern partnerships? That could fundamentally devalue the non-material aspects of human connection, things like shared vulnerability, emotional intimacy, unconditional love, the very things that define true romance. Can love and intimacy truly coexist meaningfully when financial considerations are foregrounded to this extent? Or does classifying it as an economy inadvertently make true intimacy harder to achieve by turning potentially all relationships into transactions?
Interesting point.
It feels like we're codifying a symptom rather than seeking to understand or perhaps mitigate its impact on the very essence of human connection. The concern is that in classifying the simp economy, we might inadvertently surrender the ideal of love as a primary motivator. We might normalize a paradigm where emotional connection is secondary and the search for authentic, non-transactional intimacy becomes this constant uphill battle. It could reshape our collective understanding of what a relationship is in a way that's profoundly detrimental, I think, to genuine connection.
Well, our discussion today has, I think, deeply underscored that the simp economy isn't merely about dating trends. It represents a fundamental, evolving shift in the economic underpinnings of relationships in modern society. Acknowledging and providing transparency around these increasingly prevalent transactional dynamics, as China has pragmatically done with its official classification and tracking, is, from my perspective, a crucial, necessary step. It helps individuals navigate modern partnerships with greater awareness, accountability, and ultimately a clearer understanding of the terms of engagement. It's about adapting realistically to a new reality in love and partnership, equipped hopefully with better information.
Right. And while the financial dynamics in modern relationships are undeniably present and absolutely warrant serious, ongoing consideration, this debate has certainly illuminated complex moral and ethical questions that, well, stubbornly remain. We must continue to ask whether formal classification truly fosters genuine accountability and understanding, or whether it merely introduces profound stigma and potential overreach into our most personal lives. And perhaps most importantly, we need to critically assess the true, maybe irreversible cost to romance and authentic intimacy if financial exchange becomes the defining, rather than simply an incidental characteristic of our relationships.
Absolutely. Both perspectives, I hope, illuminate the profound and often challenging implications of economic factors on modern relationships. This leaves us all to contemplate how we define love, partnership, and intimacy in this rapidly evolving landscape, and to consider that profound question of whether America should, or perhaps should not, follow China's precedent in formally classifying these dynamics. The material clearly suggests there is indeed much more to explore regarding this significant societal shift.